We're going to start with the candidates for the Florida Senate District 32, and I'm going to introduce them. The candidates are Brendan Cannon, who will be listed on the Republican line, Bruno Moore, who will be listed on the Democratic line, and the current Florida State Senator, Joe Negron, who is also running on the Republican line. We are going to begin with opening statements. And so, Mr. Cannon, you have up to 1.5 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Can everyone hear me? I want to take the moment to say thank you to the league and to each and every one of you who prizes themselves on really being engaged in politics, which unfortunately there aren't enough of us out there. So thank you. My name is Brendan Cannon. I'm running for the State Senate District 32. I am a father, a husband, and small business owner, and I want to bring a different perspective to Tallahassee. I want to promote legislation that really encourages the growth and startup of all small business in the entire state of Florida, because that's really where the beating heart of our economy is, and how the majority of us pay our bills and put food on the tables for our families. Second, I have 2 small daughters, Alyssa and Sophia. Alyssa's in first grade going into 2nd grade this year in public school. And I understand what Common Core is, and I want to repeal Common Core here in the state of Florida, and I want to bring more local control back to our public schools. And third, our environment. I understand the necessity of clean, good water, and it's because of that necessity that we in the state of Florida need to get a grasp on it and make sure that our future has the water it needs. That will be very vital to us. So thank you again. If you have any questions, please stop me at the end of this.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
All right. Okay, that one works. Hi, everybody. My name is, can you tell that I used to be in radio? My name is Bruno Moore. I'm a Democrat running for Florida State Senate District 32. I was born and raised in Fort Pierce, Florida. I'm probably one of the only ones left that was born there. Have lived here all my life with the exception of a couple of years. For those of you who are looking at me and saying, I think I know who that guy is, he looks very familiar. Years ago, I was the traffic reporter on Channel 5, so that's where a lot of people recognize me from. My background is marketing, communication, television, radio broadcasting, and the reason I decided to run for office was because I felt like I could take those talents and those experiences and apply them to something larger than what I was working on. I'm a big advocate for some social change here on the Treasure Coast. There's a lot of things that we need to really take a look at, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as residents of the Treasure Coast. Obviously, the river being the biggest one of them. We also want to make sure that we're taking care of the folks that otherwise wouldn't have a leg to stand on, wouldn't be able to take care of themselves. I'm here to make sure that that sort of thing is done. I hope that you'll consider that, and if you have any other questions, like Mr. Cannon said at the end of the forum, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Negron.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you here tonight. I want to talk about 3 quick issues under the theme of promises made, promises kept. And I've had the privilege to represent this community in the Florida Senate for 5 years, and due to term limits, this will be my last legislative race. But we came together as a community last summer with the discharges from Lake Okeechobee that really caused an environmental nightmare. And by working together through the select committee that came to Stewart, and I saw many of you in attendance there, I went to Tallahassee. We worked hard as a team. Mary Lynn Magar's here. She was part of that as well. And we have $171 million in the budget this year to address the lagoon. And this isn't for studying or things that we're going to do in the future. This is for raising Tamiami Trail 2.5 miles so water can flow south from the Everglades Park into Florida Bay, for reservoirs to store and clean water, for scientific instruments to determine the source of pollution. So we have come through as a community. We're much stronger on that issue than we were this time last year. 2 other quick things that we did I'm proud of. With seniors, if you live in a nursing home in Florida and you're under Medicaid, you get about $35 a month to get your hair done, to send letters for your personal needs. We increased that last session to $105 per month. And then thankfully, this year is the best year in almost a decade for libraries, cultural arts, and funding such as the Elliott Museum. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to have our first question. If I can have a question from one of the panelists.
We'll start with Mr. Cannon. Mr. Cannon, on which committees would you prefer to serve and why?
Mr. Moore, let's start with you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Well, specifically, I would be interested in serving on committees that are really attuned to making sure, like Mr. Negron said, that the folks, specifically the elderly and the people that don't have the means to be able to do those things that need to be done, like he was saying, with the haircuts, the letter writing, and that sort of thing. I want to make sure that I'd be an integral part of making sure that those folks are taken care of. I want to also make sure that I'm leading the continued effort to make sure that the lagoon doesn't revert back to the issues that we had prior to the summer of 2013. So committees that would be associated with that are definitely things that I would be targeting to be a part of.
Thank you. Can everyone please move your mic back a little bit, and then I think we won't get so much. That's good. Thank you. Mr. Negron.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate through hard work and some fortuitousness, frankly, with some of the folks that I've supported in leadership races, but I've had the opportunity to be really involved in the budget process during my time in the House and in the Senate. And I currently chair the Appropriations Committee, and so I think that the Appropriations Committee is really where a lot of the action is, because you can talk a lot about ideas, and if you don't have the money to implement them, then it's just that, it's talk. So I hope to still continue to be involved in the appropriations process. And I've also always asked to serve on the insurance committee, because my definition of conservative isn't that insurance companies get everything they want. I think there is a role for government to make sure that claims are paid on time, that when you pay premiums that you get the service that you're entitled to. So those are two committees that I'll continue to serve on in the Senate if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected.
Thank you. Mr. Cannon.
Florida passed the largest budget in Florida state history, and some might think that I might want to touch the Appropriations Committee to scale that back, being that I'm fiscally conservative. But the two areas that I would like to work on is gaming in the state of Florida and education in the state of Florida. As I said, I'm a big proponent against Common Core, unlike my opponents, and I would really like to see that out of the state of Florida completely, and more local control given back to the public schools where it needs to go.
Thank you. Can I have another question from the panel?
What are the most important issues facing this state?
We'll start with Mr. Cannon. Oh, actually, it's my mistake, Mr. Negron.
I think the most important issue facing the state is economic development and economic recovery. You can't afford to fix environmental problems if you don't have the revenue to do so. And the reason why our economy is doing so well is because not of government, but because of the incredible work ethic of all the men and women that are here tonight. And as a result, this past session, we had additional revenues and we didn't go on a spending spree. We set aside over $3 billion in reserves, but we did fund some things that needed our attention. My opponents brought up Common Core a couple times. Let me lay that one to rest. We have school board members in the audience and people running for school board. I'm in favor of our local school districts making decisions about curriculum and books and all the materials. Let's leave it up. I don't want Tallahassee making them or Washington making them. Let's let our local governments make them. Our most important issue on the local community continues to be the discharges from Lake Okeechobee, and I'm focused on making sure we follow through on everything we did this session.
Thank you. Mr. Cannon.
Education does tend to be one of the most biggest issues in the state of Florida. Our children really are the future, and they will continue to be the future so long as we have children. I know that. I have two daughters. I'm a father, and many of us in this audience also have children. Until we get a grasp on the educational crisis here in the state of Florida, our future as a state is also in crisis. That being said, the environment is also a very, very big deal. Florida is said to be the third largest state in the entire nation, and when you take that into account with the fact that population increase is exponential in the entire world, water, not that it's not a very big issue now, is going to become even more of a big issue here in the near future, so we need to make sure that we're set when that time comes.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
A lot of people, there we go, sorry. A lot of people,
I think they need to give you a new mic.
a lot
Here,
of,
hold on. Slow down. That mic's horrible.
now he's gonna want me to vote for him. A lot of people consider the water issue to be a local issue. I went to Tallahassee several months ago for a clean water rally, and the water issue is actually a statewide issue. So what I would say is one of the biggest issues facing the state is water, because not only are we seeing the discharges affect the Indian River, but we're also seeing discharges affecting the West Coast. We're seeing discharges affect the Everglades. We're seeing discharges affect waterways and bodies of water in Orlando. So from water comes everything else. Water is vital to our economy. Water is vital to employment. Water is vital to the health and the well-being of our entire state. So that's issue number one. We also need to make sure that we're paying special attention to the blighted communities in Florida. There is something rampant going on. We've seen it here in Fort Pierce, specifically over the past couple of months. Violent crime is upticking, and we've really got to make sure that we're on top of what's causing that.
Thank you. Next question, please.
On which issues would you like to see bills filed next session? On which issues would you like to see bills filed next session?
Okay, and we will start with you, Mr. Cannon.
What I would like to see done next session, for a more local approach, I would like to see another sober homes bill go through the Senate and the House. Last year it was stopped, and it upset a lot of residents and homeowners in my neck of the woods and throughout the entire district. That would have given the state a little bit more teeth to sink its, to really grasp the issue that's taking over the area. It's becoming a get-rich-quick scheme, and I don't think that that subject should really be taken advantage of. Next, again, Common Core is a big issue. I would like to see the Common Core completely repealed and the control gone back to the local government, and more small business legislation brought through Tallahassee.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
All right, well, a couple of things. It's got to be just me. So a couple of things. We talked about water. I think water is going to continue to be something that we want to get a hold of. So I would be looking forward to sponsoring any bills associated with making sure, number one, that the people that are polluting the Lake Okeechobee and causing these issues are held accountable for the cleanup, the majority of the cleanup, because we cannot have that on our dime. We also have to make sure that we do things similar to what Representative Larry Lee has done with Boy Scout Troop 772, giving kids in the blighted communities some mentoring and some leadership way out of the situation they're at. So I would support any bill associated with that.
Thank you. Mr. Negron.
Thank you, and I agree with him on Larry Lee's bill. Representative Lee had a bill to set up a program for mentoring and for teaching kids that face tremendous obstacles, and particularly in St. Lucie County and in Fort Pierce, where Larry Lee grew up and became very successful. And he has some ideas with a literacy program, and I've actually helped him with that bill. He wasn't able to get it across the finish line last year, but I'd love to help him again with that, because I agree that's a great program. I also think the main focus that I want to have in next session has to do with, we've committed $171 million next year and $231 million over a 3-year period to the lagoon. I want to make sure that money's spent wisely, that we keep good oversight, that people get their projects done on time and under budget. And with regard to sober homes, I agree we need to treat people that are bringing in projects that are more commercial in nature as commercial, but the bill that was proposed in the Senate last year did none of those things. It simply created a voluntary registry. It would have done nothing to help the citizens of St. Lucie County.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Where should responsibility lie for funding the dredging of the St. Lucie Inlet, and what action could the Senate take?
Mr. Moore.
Would you mind repeating the question one more time?
Yes. Where should responsibility lie for funding the dredging of the St. Lucie Inlet, and what action could the Senate take?
That's a tough one. I think what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're working diligently with commercial organizations that want to use the St. Lucie Inlet. We've obviously got to talk about the fishing community and the fishing industry and that sort of thing. And we also want to make sure that we're doing the right thing out there, by overseeing the type of dredging that's taking place, making sure that this is done properly. One of the things that I think is very important is the dredging of that and the opening of it. And so I think the Senate would be remiss if it didn't pay close attention to working with local officials on that situation.
Thank you. Mr. Negron?
Thank you, and that's an important issue in Martin County, not only to all the recreational boaters out there, because we're a community that's built around water. Even if you don't live near the water, water is an important part of our identity as a Treasure Coast. So I think it actually, to answer your question, is a responsibility of the federal, state, and local government. And fortunately, our county commission has put in money in the past, and they're proposing some new ways to fund that. The state of Florida has also put up money for its fair share toward that project, and we need the federal government to pay its fair share as well. So I think it's a responsibility, a continuing responsibility of all three levels of government.
Thank you. And Mr. Cannon?
It is the responsibility of all three levels. Unfortunately, the federal government is seeing its hardships with their own budget, so I don't expect too much funding coming down from the federal level. So at the state, we need to really make sure that we're using our funds wisely and dedicating some of those funds towards dredging and towards some more environmental issues that we have going on in the state. The local areas can do what they can, but unfortunately, it is the state that will have the majority of the budget to be able to use in this situation.
Thank you. I have two questions that have been submitted by the audience, and the first question is, could you please explain your position and opinion about All Aboard Florida? And we will start, the lucky man, Mr. Negron.
Thank you very much. And a few weeks ago, I met with a group of local elected officials, and we had about 125 citizens there. We met over in downtown Stuart at the Flagler Center, where I've been very specific that I do not support All Aboard Florida. It was initially sold to us as a private project. It turns out there are a lot of connections to not only federal loans, but also potentially to state money. So I don't believe that state funds should be spent. I've heard from neighborhoods, from community organizations, from people affected by the proposal to have those trains come through our community, and I don't support the project, and I don't support state funding being used to implement the project.
Thank you. Mr. Cannon.
I have not supported the project from day one for many different reasons. Number one, the funding issue. It shouldn't be upon us to pick up the paychecks for corporate interests. For the second, it's going to interrupt and interfere with our daily lives here in the counties that we represent. Now, I haven't been against it from day one, whereas my opponents feel a little bit differently. My main opponent, his law firm, has lobbied on behalf of All Aboard Florida and only recently has come out against it. So I think it really needs to be an issue of, why do we not believe in All Aboard Florida and doing what we can to prevent it from happening in the state? And as far as funds go, if it's coming through, well, the state does need to step in and help out with the local counties to do what they can to make sure that life goes on as we see fit.
Thank you. And Mr. Moore.
Well, like I said, I was born and raised in Fort Pierce, so my entire life I've been against any train that makes me late for work, and anybody that has sat at a light or at a train crossing for 25 minutes to wait for a train to go by and then slow down and back up, and it's just crazy. So we obviously don't need more of this. There's no net benefit to the community. It's not going to help the Treasure Coast at all. It's going to hinder the Treasure Coast. There's no jobs. There's no stops. In my humble opinion, they're taking advantage of something that they thought they could just shove right through, and I'm proud of this community for stepping up and saying, no way, not on our watch. You guys have a lot of explaining to do, so vehemently against it.
Thank you. And one other question. Could you please explain your position or opinion on casino gambling, casino gaming? Mr. Cannon.
Gaming is a big issue here in the state of Florida. I believe that it's a great source of revenue, and the revenue should be used wisely. I have a problem fundamentally with the fact that the state of Florida allows the Seminole tribe to do what they want, but prevents the residents of Florida from being able to do what they want. I believe if the Seminoles can do it, the residents of Florida should also be able to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
I oppose the expansion of any kind of casino gambling or Las Vegas style resorts. I spoke with a group several weeks ago that opposes that sort of expansion. They sent me a lot of information, specifically information about the fact that major resorts like this actually pool resources from mom and pop businesses. A lot of mom and pop businesses, small businesses close down because of these giant resorts. So there's really no net economic benefit to the area that these resorts would serve. So it's not something that I would recommend or support. I just don't think it would be good, and I don't know that there's a lot of economic intake or positive feedback from resorts such as that.
Thank you. And Mr. Negron.
Thank you. My view on it is that it depends on what the particular community wants. And we have communities in Florida, such as Miami and Broward County, that have an interest in considering the possibility of bringing in larger casino-type hotels. And I think that we should respect the views of those voters who've approved some of those referendums and are interested in that. So I'm not completely closed to the possibility of considering them. I think that those issues will move forward with next session on determining how we go. Since the opponent brought up my law firm, I've been practicing law longer than my opponent has been alive, and done it with integrity, and I will defend my reputation in this community. I have never represented all aboard Florida. My law firm has 7 offices statewide. We represent thousands of people and companies. I keep my legislative work separate from my law firm work, and him even bringing it up belies the point, because I'm not supporting a plan that he's
Thank you.
alleging that my law firm is supporting.
Thank you, Mr. Negron.
You're welcome.
As I stated earlier, we're going to move to closing statements, and they're the reverse of the opening statement. So, Mr. Negron, you are first. You have up to a minute and a half.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here. It's a great turnout, and we really appreciate the opportunity to talk to voters. And my request to you, I'm here in a job interview. I'm not entitled to this seat. This seat belongs to all of us, and I'm here to make my case for why you should rehire me for another 4 years. And what I've discovered in life is the best predictor of future performance is past performance. And during the time that I've represented this community, I've fought hard on issues we care about, whether it's building the Kane Center that we all enjoy that serves our seniors, whether it's making sure that we protect our civil liberties and that we don't have drones following us around without probable cause. I've told you what I stand for. I have a wariness toward government, and I'm going to protect your civil liberties. I care about seniors. I care about people that live in nursing homes. And I want to make sure that on this environmental issue that affects our community and our way of life, that we follow up and that the state does what it says it's going to do. And when we all got together last summer, what did I promise you? I said measurable progress in reasonable time. Didn't tell you I was going to be the general manager of the universe. I said, here's what I will do. And I went to Tallahassee, and I fought every day with Mary Lynn Magar, with Gail Harrell, with our entire team, Larry Lee, to make sure that our community was protected. And we're on the recovery, we're on the way back, and I would ask for your support to continue one more time to represent you in this community in the Florida Senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Number one, thank you for to the League of Women Voters for having us up here and giving us this opportunity. I want to make sure that you folks know that I'm not sitting up here or purporting to know everything about every issue. So one of the things that I want to bring to the table, if I'm lucky enough to be, fortunate enough to be elected, is to make sure that I'm in contact with folks like you as often as possible so that I can go to Tallahassee and make sure that I'm fighting for the things that you folks need fighting for. born and raised in Fort Pierce, third generation. My grandmother was born in the 20s in Stewart. My dad still lives on the same piece of property in Fort Pierce that he was born on. I just want to do the right thing for my community. I want to be the type of candidate that gets his hands dirty, being out there in the trenches, fighting for the good of Fort Pierce and Indian River County and Stewart and Tequesta. I love this place. I call this place home. I raised a 2-year-old boy here, and I want to leave a legacy for him, a positive legacy that he can be proud of, and that folks in front of me and on the Treasure Coast all over the place can be proud of. Every time I see something positive in the news about Fort Pierce, it makes me smile, and I want to continue making sure that Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County, and the Treasure Coast has plenty more positive press from here on out. So I appreciate your vote, I appreciate your consideration, and I appreciate your time. I'll be here till the end of the forum if anybody wants to ask me any questions. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. And Mr. Cannon.
I appreciate you all being here tonight and sticking through it so long while we answer questions. And I want you to know that there may not always be a time where you agree with every single one of my positions, but rest assured that you know where I stand on an issue, and understand that regardless of where my position may be, that I will work with every single one of you to do what is necessary for the state of Florida and for the best of the state of Florida. That being said, again, education is a big concern for me. Small business growth and opportunities is a big concern for me, and our environment is a big concern with me. I want to make sure that we continue to live our lives the way we choose to live those lives. Each one of us go to work, and we work hard to earn our money, and we should be able to use our hard-earned money for whatever means necessary. And I want to make sure that we have the appropriate responsibilities that we need to be able to ensure the safety and security of our lives. And that's from the state level and from the federal government level and also from the local level. So thank you again. I'll be around to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I want to thank the candidates for attending this evening. You're now welcome to rejoin the audience.